Hello everybody, welcome to the Metal Gear Solid 2 extra part. See, there's a shit ton of alternate codec calls that you can get in Metal Gear Solid 2 depending on how you play the game, depending on various things you do. And trust me, if I were to show everything in the actual playthrough, this playthrough would be twice as long. So I decided to compile a best of for an extra part. So that's what we're going to take a look at right now.
Snake, what's hardest won, most easily lost?
A penis?
Get it?
Oh.
Amazing how relevant these Chinese.
Oh, I thought he was making a joke.
Once the moment's gone.
And remember, there's since Mei Ling is not here, it's Otacon who has to do the Chinese proverbs. Since Mei Ling isn't here, so.
Then again, you lose an hour every spring, so I guess the proverbs are right. Wow, they thought of everything. Did they even have daylight savings back then?
It is kind of weird that I don't think we ever really get to hear, at least verbally, from Mei Ling. I'm not counting Smash.
Jova, stay put. You might have a surprise coming for you in a few minutes.
Have a proverb that goes, scholars hold in esteem knowledge, not acts. See, they just sit around thinking instead of actually doing something, which doesn't make them too useful. Action is what matters, I think.
Look, what I heard from Mei Ling was that...
Snake, have you noticed that you bring her up a lot?
Huh?
Oh.
That isn't the...
Here we go again. What am I gonna do with you? Like I was saying, it's
Oh,
Like,
God.
what do you like her or
a
something?
good thing one of us can keep all the...
One is jealous.
Snake, do you know the Chinese proverb, care avoids error?
And now, Otacon, every man has his needs.
There's some linguists who think that this accounts for an almost universal utterance of the syllable
Oh, that reminds me actually. Basically, Shiroi.
What a crock. What did you do with that?
Oh, I know that voice.
Oh, there it is. Hey!
that's really,
Yo, Mei.
You do that. You know how busy I am and you...
It's not what you think.
Oh? So what am I thinking?
Nick's like, what the
going on
fuck
over
is...
there?
Yeah, exactly.
You know that Otacon's been...
Mei Ling, we're in the middle of a mission and everything, so can we, you know...
Oh, so when the tables are turned, now you want to drop the conversation,
While
Otacon.
still using the
Care avoids error. Is that if you're cautious, you can avoid making serious mistakes. Even
There you go,
if
Jova. There's your Mei Ling cameo.
Watch what you do. Good luck.
Yeah. Again, like I said, though,
Well,
it's weird. It's weird how, for the most part, we never really heard from her again. Again, aside from Smash, which is...
Well, that's what
Weird.
MGS. Well, Jova, that's what MGS4 is for.
She got mad and went offline.
And so that's a bit of nice little cameo from Kim, my guest there.
Much to do, so
Basically, Shiroi, the fanship of. Here you go.
I think you should just let him sleep.
Yeah, let us
Turn
start
to your
running.
duties. Head for the BC connecting bridge. Be quick about it.
Okay, but what if we? Oh,
He's asleep? How much longer is this
They-
guy gonna sleep?
basically, Shiroi, the Otasune fanship is basically the Otacon snake ship, and recently there was someone who made a funny skit about it, and Kojima retweeted that tweet.
Still sleeping.
So a lot of people are on right now on social media going, "Oh my God, Otasune is canon." Snake.
Okay.
I'm on your side.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
So what happens if we shoot Snake?
Right.
Yep.
What reason could you have to shoot someone while they are sleeping?
I can't believe you. And he was on our side, right?
I strongly disapprove. Hurry up and return to your duties.
For shame.
Who
You know,
exactly is
knowing
that
that these
Her name
AI
is
would
Fortune.
later
She
order us
leads
to be
Dead
against
Cell.
him
Hang on
really
a
kind
moment.
of
I'll
drives
look
in
up
the
for you.
irony.
Rosemary
He's basically...
researched
He
Fortune
pulls
for
the
you.
whole
Oh,
remote
here goes.
wall.
Here's some fortune
Data
trivia.
found on Fortune. She goes by Fortune. She leads Dead Cell. Her
That's
real
what the
name
Colonel
is
said.
Helena Dolph Jackson. 2 years ago, her father, Commandant of the Marine Corps Scott Dolph, was killed in a training accident. Her
Oh, never
husband was
mind.
the former Dead Cell leader, Colonel Jackson. Died in captivity, my data says. After her husband's death, she joined the military. She didn't have any combat experience, but was soon singled out for a particular trait and was reassigned to Dead Cell.
What trait?
Luck. She was real lucky, like miraculously lucky. Wherever she went, bullets curved away. and missions always ended in success.
Is that some kind of joke?
I thought so too, but there is not a single record of her ever being wounded, not even a scratch. Jack, be careful, please.
Right,
Okay.
what are you looking at? Oh, I see. Rosemary,
What?
could you excuse him for a moment? You know, so he can...
Ah, I get it.
In case you find a poster, I
Jack,
think. Or a peanut
let me know when
magazine.
you're done, okay?
Yeah.
Poor
I didn't know you
Ryan
had
being
such
put on the
weird
spot like
interests. Not that there's anything wrong with that, though. Just that it's a little weird.
Jack, I think that's a little weird.
Ouch.
Ryden, what are
You know
doing
what?
there
It's fine
with
because this
that?
isn't even the
I
real
don't
Rose
believe
anyway.
it. What are you thinking? Enduring your duties?
I highly disapprove.
Even though every one of
Yeah,
us is
Royden.
scrambling to do our best to support you. This? And what exactly are you going to do? Drool over pictures of voluptuous girls?
Exactly.
At least use a picture of me instead.
I completely disapprove.
I can't believe you, Jack. Do you know what that place is?
I just
If you enter the woman's
disposal
bathroom.
instructor might be in there.
Why
I
would
love
he
that.
be
It's
in
like,
there?
look,
Well,
fat boy,
you
you
never
won
know.
on a
He's
military
AWOL
mission,
and-
but at least
Even
do it over a
AWOL,
picture of your
normal
wife.
guy wouldn't go into a woman's bathroom.
That's what I do,
You're
usually.
the only one I know who would. You're like really strange.
Good to know.
Rosemary, settle down.
But
It's all right. Ryden, Rosemary is right. You should probably look someplace else. I can really sympathize with you there, though.
what, sir?
Nothing. Ryden, that's that.
He
Colonel!
just implied
Stay
Ryden
out
was
of there,
possible.
you weirdo!
Unbelievable.
Yeah!
Ryden,
Jack, give it a rest. I can't bear watching you do that.
I disapprove.
don't.
Return to your
Basically, if you are too violent, they will
But
scold you.
I'm beginning to feel like putting you in charge was not such a good idea. Ryden, I'm at a loss for words.
I'm afraid to ask. Do you do that in my room too?
Ryden, that's long enough. Hurry up and get back to your duties if you've seen enough.
Jack, in retrospect, I'm really glad that I took this assignment.
Huh?
It's given me a chance to see you for who you really are. Goodbye. So, Jack,
Oh, the
What do
irony.
I want? Well, I'd like to save, if that's okay.
then go ahead.
I won't make you save. Do not save.
Ouch.
This is a joke, right? Rose.
What now?
What do you mean, what
Come
now?
on.
Save my data, please.
Fine. Don't you have something you want to say before that?
Like what? All right, I get it. I'm sorry. There. You satisfied?
Close enough.
You selfish.
What was that?
What was that?
Nothing. Just talking to myself.
What a
Tell me
great
what you know
couple.
about Fat Man.
Okay, hold on a minute. I'll look him up.
Yeah.
I don't know, Teo. Me and Vanessa sometimes have little quarrels like that are pretty much like that. So
They handled surprise raids on vital government facilities, didn't they?
Yes.
This man has
They
been
were originally
traumatized
put
into
together
never
to check the
masturbating
nation's
again.
military security system. The unit was the brainchild of ex-president
And it's
George
all
Sears.
thanks to
Dead
either
Cell was
the
a secret
actual
unit
Rose or an
positioned at the
AI
opposite
copy
end
of
anti-terrorist
Rose.
outfits
Either
such as
way,
Delta
thanks,
Force and
Rose.
SEALs.
Were they always a...
Group of madmen?
Yeah.
No. They got weird when Colonel Jackson, Fortune's husband, was sent to jail.
Sent to jail? For what?
Corruption. He misappropriated
Of
government
course.
funds.
Sounds like he deserved it.
That's what everybody else thought, except for the members of Dead Cell. They felt the colonel was falsely accused. Fact is, they took the case to the powers that be, but they never managed to reopen the case.
Was there any truth to their claim?
Who knows? Whatever the situation is, Dead Cell's name was tainted.
And Colonel Jackson?
He was being held at Leavenworth.
Was? Meaning he's been released?
Well, in a manner of speaking. dead.
Released from life.
Yeah.
Apparently, he lost the will to live and died in prison. The members of Dead Cell snapped with the loss of their leader. They underwent
So,
a
I
radical
guess
change
Padme
that
wasn't
became
alone in that
uncontrollable.
regard.
And that's why they
Or to
undertook
protect
this
me stuff, I
terrorist
know who killed
operation.
me.
Seems as good a reason as any.
Oh god, that
Vamp was a
movie.
member of Dead
Yeah, but you
Cell.
didn't see any joke.
Born in Romania, his specialty
I've
is
seen
knives.
reviews of it.
oh, here's
I
some
know
bits
about
about.
it.
Here's some bits of
He was
about
just a
them.
kid. He lost his family to a terrorist bomb that went off in a church they were attending. His body pierced by a crucifix, Vamp was buried under the rubble for 2 days before he was finally rescued. During those 2 days, he survived by feeding on the blood of his family to quench his thirst.
Yummy.
That was how he acquired a taste for blood.
So that's why they call him Vamp.
No, Vamp isn't for vampire, it's because he's bisexual.
Oh.
Rumor has
Oh.
it Vamp was the
Good to
lover
know,
of Scott
I guess.
Dolph, the Marine Commandant who accidentally died 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's a fun little bit of trivia you can get. Vamp is probably the first bisexual character I've ever seen in a video game.
For a rookie.
Which also recontextualize a bit these advances was right in.
Exactly.
Not
Yeah.
lovers, but very close.
Friends?
No, there's more to their relationship than that.
But Vamp was her father's
But buddies?
lover.
Would it have been better
Raiden,
if
they
it was
were
with her mother?
roommates.
Well,
I don't really think they care what you think. Focus on
Yeah.
the mission.
by the way, have you ever met the guy before?
No.
But he seemed to know you.
Right. Well,
Well, no. I mean,
it can't be.
What?
Nothing. I told you the Dead Cell is a group of madmen. I wouldn't take anything they say very seriously.
Right.
What
right.
do you know about that
Sure.
strange woman?
You mean Fortune? She's the Dead Cell leader. Her real name is Helena Dolph Jackson, known to her friends as Lady Luck.
Lady Luck.
Yeah, she got the name because bullets seemed to veer away from her in battle. People have heard her say that her fortune in battle was payback for the lousy luck she's had in life.
Lousy Luck?
The death of her father, the Marine commander, the conviction of husband and Dead Cell leader Colonel Jackson. These events were followed by her mother's suicide, the loss of a husband, and the idea of a
Sometimes,
convict in the family apparently took her over the edge. Fortune was 3 months pregnant at the time, and the shock of her mother's death led to
Pedro,
the
are there
loss of
any
her
good
child.
family
Add to
dynamics in
this
the
her husband's
series?
death.
Yes, in MGS4,
To
Shiroi.
sum it up,
Okay.
in the
Specifically the family that snuck up Otacon in a certain other character.
She's had it rough.
Yeah. The thing is, she didn't grieve
Okay,
long.
okay, that
Instead,
one's fair.
She joined the military.
Now why is that?
Do I look psychic? My best guess is revenge. I
Yes.
heard that she firmly believed that her husband was framed.
Let's just say, Shiroi, there's a good. Let's just say, Shiroi, there's a good reason why there's the Otasun fanship.
With an unusual streak of luck. In
Cute.
fact, some say she sold her soul for it.
Her soul?
Her uncanny luck earned her a reputation that led to her appointment as the head of her husband's unit, Dead Cell. Fat Man.
Well, they're not dead, so
Supposedly
they'd be
he's
alive,
nicknamed after
Cell.
an atomic bomb, but to me, he's just a fat man.
Come on, Dwibs.
Something straight out of
It has a
sideshow.
thematic
If
name
he
to
even
it.
has a bit of spare time, he spends it disassembling and assembling his Glock over and over again. He can't stand to have his hands still. He's extremely vain about his hands, keeps his fingers as slender and soft as a woman's. They say he's always looking at his hands, giving himself manicures.
Colonel, what do you know about that female soldier, Olga?
Olga Gerlukovich. Just like that guy said, she commands a Russian private army.
Do you know anything else?
Anything else?
Yeah, anything else?
Why are you concerned about her anyway?
You know.
Jack?
No, it's not like that.
I'm joking. I'll look into her for you.
What a
Good luck.
tease.
Hard to
Right.
tell sometimes with
Rosemary has some
heroes.
information to report.
I looked into Mr. Peter Stillman's file. Full name is Peter Stillman, known as Peg Leg Peter. He is a legendary bomb disposal technician. He is also a longtime instructor at the Naval School Explosive Ordnance Disposal and a consultant for the NYPD bomb squad. But 5 years ago, he lost his leg in an accident. And since then, he hung up his gloves to focus on being a lecturer. He was called back into service because, as he said, he is the only explosive specialist who can stop Fat Man. Although no longer an active consultant, he is still without a doubt the #1 guy when it comes to disarming explosives. He should be very helpful to you.
Rosemary has completed her
Okay.
data search.
I looked up information on Fat Man. Fat Man, the emperor of explosives. You've already heard how he manufactured an atomic bomb at the age of 10. He appears to have been known throughout the world of explosives since he was a child. He entered the Naval School Explosive Ordnance Disposal at Indian Head and graduated at the top of his
You know,
class.
Dwibs, the
That's around
members
the
of
time
Dead
he
Cell
met
are
Stillman.
basically all
He was
basically
assigned to the
Scaramanga
nuclear emergency
types.
search team. He quit soon after, though. After that, he joined Dead
Yeah,
Cell
like
as an
golden
explosive
guns,
specialist.
maybe.
No,
He's been
as
there
in
ever
like,
since.
remember, because Scaramanga first started shooting guns at 9,
Jack,
so,
I
and most of the
looked at
Dead Cell
Mr.
members
X,
started
and
when they
I
were
think
children
he
too,
quote,
so.
During the Shadow Moses incident, Solid Snake did receive help from a guy who called himself Deep Throat. His true identity appears to be that of former Foxhound Unit member Gray Fox.
Gray Fox, huh?
Correct. His real name is Frank Yeager, the only member of Foxhound allowed to use the title of Fox. He was its best member. In Outer Heaven, he holed up in the stronghold ahead of Snake. He helped him and brought an end to the standoff. But in Zanzibar, he joined forces with Big Boss and became the leader of the upheaval. That's where he fought and lost to Snake. Fox was mortally injured and was picked up by the military. After that, it looks like he was used as the guinea pig in power exoskeleton and gene therapy experiments.
Power exoskeleton?
Cyborg ninjas, as some people call
These
them.
guys also
This also,
said
yeah.
in the game to put some doubts in. Oh, he's the ninja Gray Fox.
Not just that. Kind of nice in hindsight, considering this is Raiden's first introduction to the concept of a cyborg ninja. We'll get back to this, Shirai.
So now he's...
No, he died in Shadow Moses. That is for sure.
So then who is Mr. X?
I don't know.
The villain of Streets of Rage, Raiden.
Right.
Also, the
Rosemary has
Chaser from
something to
Resident
report.
Evil 2.
Jack, I looked into that guy a few minutes
It's
ago.
sadly a
wearing
very
cardboard
common
box,
name.
but
Did you find it?
You know, Capcom
No,
tend
there's
to
no
like to repeat a lot of
corresponding data in
names
the
for
files
main
from either Dead
characters.
Cell
Like,
nor Colonel
not even just
Lukovich's
side
private
characters, but a
army.
lot of times
How
with
about
main
a
characters
surviving
across a
member
lot
of
of their
SEAL Team 10?
franchises.
Forgot,
Maybe they
was
just
Mr.
like
X
the
also
name.
was Mr. X also the name of that
You didn't
villain,
find
the
anything.
villain of that
No, I'm sorry, I
beat
couldn't
'em
find
up
anything.
drug
Wonder who
theme
the heck he
game
was.
where he
Right,
turns into a
be
blob
on
at
the
the end.
lookout.
I need to look it up.
Right.
I don't remember.
Don't ever turn your back on that Olga woman. Olga Gerlukovich, daughter of Colonel Sergei Gerlukovich, ex-GRU and former Spetsnaz commander. She's the leader of Colonel Gerlukovich's private army that's been wandering around the Big Shell. Those men were gathered by Colonel Gerlukovich. Following his death, she inherited his command and now exercises full control. Her father's name was widely respected throughout the old Soviet regime, and he was the goal of just about every military man.
Why would a respected soldier become a leader of those cutthroats?
The collapse of the Republic resulted in a lot of unemployed soldiers. Most found themselves suddenly
similar
cast
story,
out of the
actually.
civilian
Yeah,
world,
the
hopelessly lost.
the constant reoccurring theme of Metal Gear.
He organized a mercenary army.
Soldiers
led his
without a
men from
purpose.
battle to battle in various disputed regions around the world, hoping that one day he would rebuild his homeland. Rumor has it that during the Shadow Moses incident, he planned a rendezvous with Liquid Snake's men and assist in their uprising. I assume that the
Yeah,
revolt
we do
figured
know
into
thanks to
his
that call
reconstruction plans
with
for the
Ocelot
Soviet
that was a
regime.
thing.
I also heard that Ocelot, Liquid's right-hand man, was an
Yeah.
old friend of the Colonel's back in the old days of the Soviet Union. In any case, Olga inherited her father's military genius and has become a force to be reckoned with. She was born and raised on the battlefield, and she's as tough as she looks. Not my ideal choice for a date.
Like you've met her.
No, I haven't had the pleasure. Just remember what I said.
Sure.
And
Don't
how would you
turn
know
your
it's a
back.
pleasure?
Raiden. Rosemary did a bit of research on that female.
Oh yeah, in the meantime, here's the final
Olga Gerlukovich.
final payoff for
She's
that
the
bit where she was
daughter
going to
of
research
former
Olga.
GRU
Let's see.
Colonel Sergei Gerlukovich. After the Federation collapsed, the colonel apparently commanded a group of mercenaries that drifted between area conflicts and civil wars. After he died, it looks like she took over control of the group. She has more notches on her gun than you do. Underestimating her prowess will get you hurt. Be careful.
Sure.
Right. Rose did a bit of research on Fortune's weapon.
What? I can't hear over the
It
music.
appears to be a personal
The railgun, yes.
Railgun?
Yes, an electromagnetic gun that fires bullets with magnetic force. As a
Ionized
movable
plasma,
conductor, it uses
baby.
Plasma
Yep.
electrons to boost acceleration capabilities. The kinetic energy of the ammunition is approximately 10 megajoules. Incidentally, that of a 140mm smooth bore gun ammunition is 20 megajoules.
I can't believe something like that even exists.
It's not available though.
In
What
this
she has is
universe,
only a
that
prototype.
surprises
One of
you.
the case, that kind of gun should not be able to be brought to be normally handled by human beings, so fortunately, he's also very strong.
Evaluation
Again,
exists the
in this
process
universe.
as unacceptable
I mean,
field weapon
maybe
because
if this
of the
were
high
like...
risk of accidental discharge.
Actually, no, even by the time of the first Metal Gear,
Most
technically,
likely,
thanks to
probably
games that
because
take
she's
place
lucky.
before that, people should be expecting
Either way,
the
it's a weapon
insanity
that
of
she
this
alone can
universe
wield,
at that
that's for
point.
sure.
Yeah, and a weapon that's uncontrollable, too.
Be very careful, Jack.
Right.
Okay.
The bomb?
Nothing yet.
Oh yeah, this bit. Basically, Shiro, if we don't know where the bomb is, we can actually have...
Checked under Fat
yeah.
Man's body?
What? Of course not. It can't be there.
There you go, Shiro. Apparently, you and Rose thought the same thing. Under Fat Man's body.
Hunch, all right?
Look, Rose, I know what I'm doing, and this is my life on the line.
Sure you do, right?
Sure you do, right?
Sure you do.
In this type of work. So just...
Raiden, don't turn down a good suggestion when you hear one. Check it out.
Remember
Jack?
who's actually, you know, in your
What?
mission control.
Oh, there you
You
go.
know what I'm talking about.
All right, all right. The
What do
bomb
you
was where
have to
guessed it would
say?
be. You were right, and you saved my butt.
As long as you realize that.
I was pretty surprised, though. I never expected to find it where I did.
You must think I'm pretty clueless, huh?
Of course not. And I have a pretty healthy respect for the woman's intuition thing now.
That is such a sexist thing to say, you know that?
Come on, don't be mad. I apologized already.
Don't sweat it. I'm just messing with you. I want you to recognize that I can help you through this thing, and that I care about you.
Rose?
Hang in there, okay?
Looks like there's a lot of stuff laying about. Make
I'm
sure not to
side-eyeing
scatter it
everything she
around.
says because
The
I don't
enemy
even know
won't
if this
increase
one's
their
real.
security if they discover
Again,
anything
Troy,
out of
here's the
place.
thing.
That's the main
Don't worry.
doubt that
I'm used
is
to cleaning
given
things
to
up.
you. Like,
Rose's room
is the
is-
AI
Don't
rules
say anymore.
a reflection of the
Fine.
real intentions of the real
Anyway,
rules,
the
or
key
just
element
something
of covert
constructed to appease
operations is
Raiden's
not to leave
personality?
anything behind.
Not
Understand?
again, not to mention the
Raiden,
obviously what
what are you doing?
her
You forget
mission actually
yourself.
was.
I
Remember,
can't
the
believe
rules
you.
that
What's wrong with you?
I highly disapprove.
that's all you have to say.
What do you mean,
Over.
I'm just?
Rosemary, you're right. One shouldn't stoop to vulgar levels just because they've set foot on the battlefield. But I can sympathize with you there.
What?
Ah, nothing.
How
Focus.
twisted. The both of you. Jack, what the hell are you doing?
Again, if you start killing people left and right and shit like that.
Rosemary,
Colonel, was I wrong in what I did?
perhaps. There are certain things that a person can and can't do.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
You understand?
Yes.
Come out of this thing alive, both for yourself and so as not to waste your training.
No need to tell me that, Colonel.
Right. And I recommend you not throw away that picture.
Are you?
Continue your duties. Understood?
Yes, sir.
No more questions. We have Rosemary.
Here to you enjoying yourself slapping around defenseless hostages.
You know, while we
I
don't
can't
know for
believe
certain
you. I
if
didn't
that
think you
was
were
the
the kind of
Rose
person
AI
to
the
do
whole
such a
time,
thing.
knowing that the Colonel AI was there all the
Rosemary.
time really
Yeah.
makes me wonder.
I can only imagine.
Was there?
Sorry.
Goodbye.
Go on.
Was there some guy like typing this
I thought I
stuff
heard
all
of it
along, or
somewhere
did they
before.
just program
Yeah,
this to the
we're talking
exact
about the
reaction
Yeah.
for each thing?
No, there's a binge
So
over.
is
I can.
AI Colonel trying to steal Rosemary?
the
Like,
one who
what is happening?
No, I really have to.
Funny you mention AI Colonel
also
stealing
actively
Rosemary,
involved in the philanthropy
Shiroi. It's
organization
very, very
Where is she now?
funny you
Your guess
mention.
is
Anyway, but well on, Joe.
Don't
Let's
know
not.
yourself for.
Yeah, let's not get too ahead of ourselves, Joe, because she hasn't played that
Again,
game
well,
yet.
Yeah, no duh.
But again, we do know that the roles that Jack meets at the end
That's just great.
is the real roles, and
Oh, no, yeah.
now that they have
about Iroquois?
genuinely trying to actually
Iroquois is a
start
Francophone
again
version of
with
the
more
Algonquin
sincerity
word
this
for
time
rabbits.
around. You know, is
It's what
actually
they
a
called their
thing.
enemies.
But again,
Algonquin?
it's what happens
The
before,
Algonquin
which is the
Nation,
general
one of the
theme
many
of the
groups
game.
of Native
What
Americans
actually
used
is
to call
real and what is
Manhattan
not.
Island their
Are
home.
the AIs
The
that
majority of
spouts
tribes
about
in what's now the
simulation,
state of
your
New
life
York
is
were a
meaningless,
part
you
of the
know,
Algonquin
ground
Nation.
control is that
So this
actually
was a stronghold
real? You
of
believe that, or you
snakes.
truly trust what
By the
Snake
way,
says? Again,
Manhattan
that's
means
it's
island
the game
hills
engaging
in
you with this kind of question.
Yeah, but
Right, my sympathies.
What?
Sneaking missions are called wet words for a reason after all.
Don't worry about it, Jack. It's okay.
basically, if you get yourself
That
wet,
is, as
basically.
long as you take a shower the second you get back. Do we have a deal?
Colonel, I want some
Oh,
background
poor Ryder.
information.
Okay, that's a binge over. I have to wonder what Paul was told for recording. Okay, Paul, today you're going to record a reaction from the Colonel about Raiden fapping to a porn mag. I have to really
Oh,
wonder.
We can probably do those reactions in his sleep and whatnot. Again, my big wondering is the Patriots, the AI in general. What is it, Dribs?
Danziger is a
Why
mother's
did they
maiden
go
name,
after a
but she
mobile
prefers
phone
Emery.
company? And before you
After
say
returning home to
the game was made in
England, her mother
2001, this
married
game takes
Robinson,
place
a businessman.
What year did they say this game takes place?
2009.
E wasn't a thing back then either. So
Maybe that company is not a thing in this universe? Go on, Jova.
Anyway, but yeah, no. So like the Patriots at the time, as far as we knew the AI, how is it able to gauge all of the Colonel's reactions just for each scenario? I wonder.
I guess it's just that advanced of an AI.
Also programmed GW to be based around the initial position. That means having the Colonel as your vision control. However, as the AI eventually said, allegedly they gain autonomy and sentience, you know, as it went on, and not even because of the Patriots, and not even Ocelot knew all the truth. Again, according to what the AI actually says. So it's more of a thing that there's a base that exists, but then the program evolved autonomously.
And information
Perhaps,
resources
yeah.
were concentrated at NSA in Fort
As
Meade.
far as we knew at the time.
In fact, NSA's basement
Again,
facility
it's worth noting, as we
operated
mentioned in the
round
past,
the
that
clock
Metal Gear
to
Solid
obtain
4
not only from
will
public
follow the
communications,
themes of this
but
game
everything
only
from
to a
satellite
certain
to
extent.
wiretap
A lot of
operations
things
as
will
well.
actually be left behind.
I don't think I'm
Okay,
exaggerating
let me
when
put
I
it like
say
this.
that
Metal Gear
whoever
Solid
controlled
4
the
is
NSA
without a doubt the
facility
dual
moved
destinies
the
to this
world.
game's Apollo
On
Justice.
January
It
24th,
retconned a lot of
2000,
details from this
the
game.
facility suffered
Some for the
a total
better,
system
some
shutdown
for maybe
for
the
a
not
I
as
don't know.
better.
period.
Don't worry, if you
Did they
enjoyed
ever
these
figure out the
scenes, they get
cause?
refined later in Metal Gear
Believed that a small
Rising.
group with
I don't know, I can actually enjoy
had
this
raised
game,
the
unlike
incident
Apollo
with the
Justice, to
assistance
be
of
honest
a
with you.
notorious group of crackers.
That's not
The
what I was
result
comparing
a
it
full
on in
review
that
of
regard.
NSA safety
Sure.
measures, which in turn led to the decision to shift the data gathering operations to an isolated location that would be safe from physical attack, as well as cyber terrorism.
And where might that be?
My security clearance couldn't get me that information.
Damn.
But I did find out that one of the key members of the hacker group was none other than Emma Emmerich. Although she
So
started as a
Emma
specialist
Emmerich
in
was the
artificial
equivalent
intelligence
to
and
one of
complex
those
logic,
major
Emma is now
redditors.
regarded as a computer genius.
That would make her a prime candidate for recruitment in the intelligence community, wouldn't it? And knowing most of the intelligence agencies, I doubt fair play was a major concern in their recruiting efforts.
Your assumption's correct.
Don't say.
The government played on her weakness, her strong hate for Hal Emmerich, the brother who left her when she was 6 years old.
Yeah, if you
She
forgot,
hates him that much.
the two
When
were
she
not
was
on
6
good
years
terms
old,
by that point.
Emma and her
Oh,
father
yeah.
were involved in a pool accident. She survived, but her father drowned.
What did the police have to say about that?
The report states it was an accidental death.
Isn't that about the time that Otacon left his home and family?
Exactly. But I don't have any idea why he chose to do so.
Otacon
Does
himself
Emma
told
blame
us why.
Otacon for her father's death?
I don't think
His
so.
mother
Her hate
was-
seems to
Stepmother.
stem from the
Yeah,
fact that
stepmother
she-
specifically.
Stepmother
Had a
was-
very shitty home life from
see,
what we
Just
know
like
from
in
the
a
Yeah.
fairy tale.
They
Bravo,
were said to be very
Kojima.
close.
Maybe that's,
I
Rumored
feel
that
the
sibling rivalry was
symbolism.
what launched her career as a hacker.
Although I don't recall the
4 years
stepmother
ago,
ever
the
sexually
government leaked her
abusing
the details
Cinderella.
of the shadow
Oh, no, no, no.
Both or stuff, Drova. One version or another.
You know what? There
I don't-
probably
I
is
also
some
have little-
version
Oh, no.
out there.
No, considering how fucked up those old fairy tales were, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a version that has that, to be honest with you.
Frame Snake and
Yeah.
Otacon?
That I don't know.
The rumors
Well,
about
it's
Big
up to
Shell
you to
being a
find
big
out.
cover-up
Exactly.
are
What do
true.
you, the people at home, think?
I had Snake check everything out. Sure, there's some
Again,
facilities
I
to clean
will
up the
give
pollution,
Metal
but
Gear
they're
Solid
not
2
running at
this.
full
I
capacity.
think it
Don't
might
you
be a
think it's
contender
funny
for
that even
having
though
the
2 years
best
have gone
codec
by
calls
since
of the
incident,
series.
they haven't managed
Just
to
for how
clean up
funny
all
they
the
can
crude
get.
oil.
Not well.
Of course, the
Here's the
movie
thing. By
doesn't
just
reflect that.
in my opinion, just by having that one big codec call in the final sequence, that alone puts it in that place as far as I'm concerned. Because, like I said, that to me that's the codec call to end all codec calls.
Information is being suppressed on a huge scale. These guys seem to think that the new Metal Gear is worth all the effort and money they're spending on it.
So I've been
Wait a
lied to
minute.
all along.
Are you talking about the
No.
next Metal
think you
Gear or the
understand
next Metal Gear
what's going on.
game?
They can both be true, Jova.
I didn't mean by the Colonel.
I'll be honest, that line always strikes me as meta. And knowing Kojima, would you put it past the man?
Again, they can both be true.
You know, you're a pretty interesting guy. You're just like Snake said,
What did he say?
that you're a weak, simple-minded, stubborn fool. A weak,
Don't
simple...
worry, Ryder.
Don't patronize me. My mommy tells me I'm strong.
Bad.
Yeah,
What could possibly be worse than that? That Lying, useless
My senpai hates me.
Rodney, I'm his friend. I know him better than anyone else. I know he's not that kind of guy.
Yeah, so.
Although I will say, Java, I also have a soft spot for the the radio calls in MGS3, specifically involving the paramedic.
Yep.
Oh, they're good too.
Every word.
Again, like I said, it's a contender. I need to get a relook at the series, which, thankfully enough, that's what these commentators are doing well, before I can gauge which definitely are my favorite codec calls, but again, Metal Gear Solid 2 has some pretty great ones, for humor's sake. Even other deets as well.
Yep.
Everyone's bullying Raiden.
Sold that data not only to the nuclear
Everybody
powers, but to other
hates
countries as well.
Raiden.
Those nations that obtained the data have commenced their own Metal Gear research. Where does it go from here? What happens when the world is flooded with variations of Metal Gear? We'll probably be looking.
You get eventually Metal Gear Survive, a god-awful mess.
Can you imagine Oprah giving a Metal Gear to each of the audience members?
You know, Java? You know, Java? You know, Java?
Metal Gear Rex.
You know, Java, you just brought up a good point. Maybe Colonel was right. Maybe we should let him censor people. Now that I think about it, I don't know. The erasure of Metal Gear Survive from the timeline would be a good consequence, at least.
But would it be worth the fallout? Would it be worth the consequence?
Purified hydrogen bomb. Any idea what it is?
I guess not, but damn it.
I like how you had to think about that because, no joke, Metal Gear Survive is god-awful.
Sometimes you have to accept the bad.
Our nation focused its research efforts on the laser inertial compression theory.
I think Metal Gear Survive is kind of like the last new thing this franchise has gotten in recent
For our reference audience, there have been rumors circulating around Konami is doing something about the franchise. By the time we're recording, we don't know nothing yet.
Yeah.
Again, like, it still is just hearsay and rumors, so again, as far as we know, Metal Gear Survive is the last thing released from Metal Gear, again, I guess unless we're counting that pachinko game that they used the Fox and...
No, that doesn't, no, as far as I'm concerned, that doesn't exist.
Does Survive at least have good music?
Survive?
That's I know that it has music, but I think they tried to do the Dark Souls thing of being more
That's the thing, Shiroi. Ludwig Forsol.
I completely forgot the music I've heard from.
That's the thing.
Well, then the game is useless.
That's the thing, Shiroi. Ludwig Forsol, the composer of Metal Gear Solid 5, which was Kojima's final Metal Gear game, he followed Kojima into Kojima Productions to do the music for Death Stranding. So he wasn't around to do the music for Metal Gear Survive, so probably not that great.
Wow.
Alright, let me see.
There are 4 listed composers, but I don't know any one of them. Haruna Kubo, Takanori Kaneko, Pedro Avelar, and Karina Nakano.
Okay, I don't okay.
One of those names sounds different from the other.
I noticed.
In the meantime, especially because
Might as well say, Tail. I noticed too that you didn't mention Norihiko Hibino, who was one of the main.
The Wikipedia.
No, I get that, but what I meant is that I noticed you didn't mention Norihiko Hibino, aka who was one of the big composers of Peace Walker and Phantom Pain. Which, yeah, the fact that he's not there either, yeah, I'm not exactly excited to try to hear that soundtrack, to be honest with you.
Alright, let me see if it had any recognition.
A lot of people will get
Especially considering how Metal Gear Solid has, the Metal Gear franchise has always had fantastic music. Like,
okay, Metal Gear Survive does apparently have a lengthy soundtrack. Although, from what I've seen, some of this music is stuff apparently recycled from Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence, from Metal Gear Online, and from Metal Gear Solid 4 and 5.
You took the easy way out so you wouldn't have to face me. That way you could avoid responsibility every day. You ran. You ran away so you wouldn't have to face the pain.
No, that's not why I left.
You left me and took the easy way out.
That's not true. I left the house because...
You're a criminal, just like me.
A criminal?
I know what you did.
I thought I said no arguing.
You manipulated our account on the network. But look at what you're doing now. You're nothing but a cracker.
No. I'm just applying my knowledge for the cause.
Okay, that makes me imagine Samuel L. Jackson can be an easy cracker, or something like that.
The enemy? That's why I do what I do best.
Oh, right. Nice justification, Hal. Forget about being a criminal. You'd make a great lawyer.
All right, already.
Jova.
Enough.
Kill the lawyer!
That is to intervene.
Out of my way. Let me talk.
You want to talk to Otacon?
Yes.
I'll put him on.
Yeah? What is it?
Up to now, scientists have continued to be active participants in war. What's your opinion?
Oh,
There's no doubt that war is
it's a
the
tricky
ultimate
question.
event that fuels the progress of science. But therein lies the trap. We scientists must establish some form of work ethic.
Or,
It's a
as
tragedy
proven
that both the
constantly,
government
maybe
and the
scientists
military
are
act as
naturally
sponsors to
evil.
modern
I don't know.
science.
What are you talking about? The atom and hydrogen bombs were
Well, tell you, what's the
born
fun in being a scientist? We don't get to play God and be mad.
Of course.
Los Alamos and the Lawrence Livermore labs were run by universities. There's nothing strange about that.
Weapons development and universities. This may come as a surprise.
This topic will also be brought up in Peace Walker when we meet Otacon's father.
Referring to the will of Professor Oppenheimer.
Pedro didn't show as much of Emma's codec calls in the main playthrough.
I never thought that mine
Yeah, I
was
guess this is
searchable
as good a
to
time to
deliver
mention.
all
as
these
Well,
photos.
it's like I said, Joe. A lot of these codec calls, as you can see, go on for a while. So if I stop to do every single possible codec call, it would just take too long, you know. So I decided to compile the best of them in their own specific part.
But yeah, this is a good time as any to do a bit of a character study. As you can see, Emma is very abrasive towards Otacon, as this is before she gets to the revelation here and there.
Okay.
Well, to be fair, you have to look at it from her perspective. She was 6 when Otacon left, and after that incident. So of course, obviously, there's that trauma aspect to it, and she never got to hear a proper justification from Otacon. So she's in the wrong for being like this, but you understand where she's coming from, at least.
I'm fine with it for the most part. I do feel like at some point, at least for me on my first playthrough, it got a bit grating at times to the point where she was kind of a bit of a...
Let me just mention this. Remember that bit where I had to grab Emma because she wouldn't go into the elevator? Yeah, if you codec call her during those bits, she says stuff like this, basically. See? So yeah, as you can see, Shiroi, a shit ton of detail was put into this thing. They basically made a codec call for every possible thing you'll try.
Fell asleep.
So as you can imagine, Shiroi, fans love to just poke around with this game and just see whatever they can get the game to react to.
But is it really possible to automate the scale of censorship? Do we have that kind of computing capability?
But yeah, like I was saying, Emma's fine, I think, for the most part. But I can't understand why some people got a bit annoyed by her at some point, since the abrasive thing does kind of carry on a bit, and it feels like it's only by the time near her death where she's starting to clear up on things with Hal, and well, we all know what happens. Thanks, fam.
That's true. Battlefield networking, the revolution in military affairs, and of course, the VR training regiment. Information is the deciding factor.
I'm not sure if
in the
this
outcome
VR
of
will
conflict.
catch on.
It's because of
Nah.
the reality that the military's invested trillions of dollars
Just a
in
fad.
high-tech weapons and equipment. There's no night or day in war or information.
Right. 24/7. There's nothing that we couldn't see through electronic eyes and ears.
And that's what gave us the capability to collect, analyze, and understand tactical data in real time?
No, just the opposite. What we ended up with was too huge a load. We knew literally everything, from the position of every platoon on both sides to the number of clips every infantryman had left. As a result, nobody could figure out what the big picture meant. Not even the most experienced and skilled general could, because we're flesh and blood.
Humans can't adapt to the information age. Is that it?
Basically.
That's actually an argument that is still done to this day. The idea that we do have a limit of comprehension and, you know,
computerized systems to assist
speed up, not speed up, but, you know, velocity in terms of processing information, and the AIs are just on a different level compared to us.
Apparently, they got the
That
results
will
they were
never
looking
catch
for.
on.
And you're saying that worldwide information censorship can be performed the same way?
Yes, it's possible given GW's capabilities. Do you get it?
Okay.
It's like, ow, my ears.
Hey! Are you trying to kill me?
Probably.
Did you
Look, I'm just shooting you, and you think I'm trying to kill you? Come on now.
I was really trying to know what happens when the bullet hits you.
I'm almost
Look, I'm trying to go experiment on this theory to see if people really do die when they're killed.
Dude, work on your aim.
Emma,
I love that. Her main complaint being, work on your aim. You weren't even able to shoot me.
can I just say something?
Sure.
This is my real hair, okay?
Of course. As if I said anything about that.
Right. Do you actually enjoy abusing helpless animals?
I don't believe
Shooting
this.
seagulls.
I had no idea you were that kind of a monster.
But they shit on
I don't
people.
understand you, Raiden.
I'm sorry,
If you're
you really think that
satisfied, get back to the
seagulls
mission.
are helpless animals?
Right.
The
Jova.
literal rats of the sky.
Jova, remember what Marvel told us. We had to feel sorry for the fucking
Is it really
molecule.
necessary to ask?
Right,
It's just not a good
of
idea to
course.
perform
Yes.
those
Never mind the fact that the
Terrible
molecule.
for clapping and breathing.
Never mind the fact that the molecules don't have brains and therefore cannot actually process what's happening to them. All right, so that was basically a so that was. Go on.
There's a good reason also, by the way, why the names attached to the Metal Gear Survive composition, scoring are relatively unknown, because that's for pretty much all of them, that's like their only major real work. The closest I could find is when Pedro Avelar also did the sound design for Ring Fit Adventure, and that's it.
Well, hey, I've heard Ring Fit Adventure was pretty good.
Well, that's sound design, not even soundtrack. So basically, most of these people that work on Survive's score, that was literally their first and only job so far.
Now, maybe, against all odds, the music there is great, and I just blacked out on it because I was too busy really hating Metal Gear Survive.
Probably the voice that keeps telling you to mind your body fluids kept drowning it out, probably. I'm not even kidding you, Shiro.
Reminders to save as well, or buy a save slot.
I'm not even kidding you, Shiro. There's a mechanic in Metal Gear Survive about your bodily fluids that keeps saying, "Be careful of your fluid intake. Please take your fluids." And and you constantly have to drink to keep your fluid. And it's
Hydrate or dihydrate, motherfucker.
like and it's so annoying. But anyway, go on, Debs.
Hey, if you just purchase this $20 pack,
please.
Okay, no, that was not me opening the can, by the way.
That's me.
I think it's a solid game overall.
Oh, ha.
What a funny story, Luis.
You've been waiting all week to say that, haven't you?
Okay, although one thing I will say, I'm not going to pretend I understand every single piece of technical jargon they use in dialogue, because I don't. So in most cases, I'll just have to take the game's word for it.
Well, remember, Debs, Motozada Mori helps out as the military advisor. So this guy is a military guy. He knows what he's talking about, obviously. So.
And don't worry, by the time of Metal Gear Rising, you don't even need to know jack about science. Just assume nanomachines
again, they do
are...
use scientific terms, but again, for stuff they need to talk about the real world, like real events that actually have happened, or real actual usage of military terms. Like Pedro said, they had a consultant who could tell the exact terms, what they meant, and the dates and everything. So they did their homework.
And,
go on.
To continue, I do like the music that's used. I don't know who composed which piece. I don't know who did. I don't know what ones were ones from Harry Gregson Williams. I don't know which ones were done by the other guys.
It's a combination between the composers of the first game and Ari. Let me see if I can find you a list. Go on.
But overall, it was some pretty good stuff, and the voice acting. In spite of some of the more clunkier dialogue they have this time, because Kojima really doesn't like localization. I think they did it all. I think they did a pretty good job. It makes more sense when it's the AI characters having more awkward dialogue, because they're AI. They don't understand fully human chatting and all that. But from the human characters, not so much, even with the good voice acting efforts. And the story. Again, if we boil it down to layman's terms, it's pretty simple. Bad guys want to destroy something using Metal Gear. They're also using hacking and AI and other forms of manipulation of the media and public consciousness to do it. To stop them.
Let me give you a bit here. Ari composed a total of 15 tracks, including the main theme, and everything else was done by Noriko Ibino, as well as the composers of the first games. Basically, Konami sound team, basically.
Cool.
Yeah. As for I never watched this for the HD collection, but I have seen the PS2 version. I think I even played it a little bit, and even by 2001 PS2 launch game standards, this is a pretty good looking game.
Mm-hmm.
As for the negatives, I won't go too much. There is the sometimes pretty clunky dialogue because like the last game, Kojima wanted a bit more of a hand in the localization, even though he doesn't speak English. And we've seen a lot of times throughout localization where the Japanese people decide to try and do it themselves.
Please try.
Very well.
Peace is paved. This is your tale of a long friendship.
Yeah.
Let's try 9 World with one game. Go on, Nips.
Vinavis makes me wonder how Neil Breen films are localized for other countries.
Oh boy,
that would be interesting.
I can't wait to hear the Japanese dub of the president of the bank scene.
How do you say?
Imagine the bit where I can't believe you killed.
Can you even imagine telling a Japanese voice actor to emulate Neil Breen's acting? No, that is not true.
Oh my god! Imagine.
Go on, this.
Also, the scenes between Raiden and quote Rose unquote that aren't to do with the mission.
Sure.
The romance stuff. It's that stuff would get left out of the room during a pitch meeting for a script for a rom-com in the 80s.
The thing I find weird is Kojima can write romance like hell. Snake and Marrow had something pretty good going on in the first Solid game.
And we can't even say, the localizers fucked it up. No, Kojima had more of a hand in the localization this time.
No, it has nothing to do with that. It was just something that really wasn't executed as well as it should.
It's okay. I know the two games are very different in terms of quality, but it kind of reminds me in some cases of Metroid Other M, where the guy who's in the game was behind the localization.
Yeah, Yoshimoto. Yeah.
In that game, and that turned out pretty badly. It's not so bad. It's not. I wouldn't say the localization of this game is bad by any means. It's just the dialogue's a lot more literal, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
Me personally, I believe if a good localization should try to stay true to the original source, with some exceptions. But please, don't be so literal as if I'm reading a really bad fan sub.
It's interesting you say that, because the fan sub for Megaton Musashi, one thing that basically there's a character who proclaims her love for another, and his reaction is this a confession of love? Are you that kind of person? That line is just so funny. Are you one of those kinds of people that fall in love?
Wait, is that
love is icky? Oh my god.
It's fan sub. You know how fan subbers are, Joe, but they translate too literal to the point where it can be a bit, yeah.
Some fan subbers are better than others.
Well,
but
yeah,
I get
obviously.
what you mean on that regard.
Go on, Julius.
Yeah, so honestly, I think that's the worst part of the game. The at times pretty clunky localization. Anything else I could mention?
What did you think about the twists overall?
Yeah, what's your opinion on the whole matter of AIs controlling us or not?
Not to mention the whole commentary on how the internet gives people way too much power to do evil things, like we've talked about.
And in regards to how well the game conducts its twists.
Well, my only issue with it is that, again, I know it's Metal Gear Solid, but I do like to play the game at some point. The part of AI in the game that you're meant to be playing with.
There's a game for you, Gloves. It's called The Phantom Pain.
I feel like what they could have done was had some of this dialogue be spoken over gameplay sequences.
And then there was that really pointless bit where you're listening to dialogue, and it is technically playable, but all you do is run around.
Yeah, like, honestly, why not have that monologue be during when you're fighting the Metal Gears?
Or better, you've already used stock footage throughout this whole game. Why not just do it then? Did they run out of stock footage?
It's like I said, Kojima definitely likes to make his games movie-like. Mind you, he does it better than others. But again, this is Kojima unrestrained, so sometimes you get some weird stuff like that.
And from what you guys from what I've been hearing, I'm probably not going to enjoy Metal Gear Solid 4 very much.
Okay, let me put it like this. If you enjoy the story good enough, you may not notice it as much. That being said, yeah, if you go into the expectation that you'll be playing that game more than watching it, you are going to be disappointed.
It's one of those things where it depends on the tolerance. I mean, a lot of people like I said, I think Phantom Pain. Phantom Pain is the exact opposite. Phantom Pain takes a 30% cutscenes, 70% gameplay approach. It's basically the inverse of MGS4. As a direct
response. Not by Kojima's choice. Like, there's a whole history behind the development of that game that shows why it was like that.
Mm-hmm.
But...
Well, I'll get to it when we get to it.
Mm-hmm.
And as putting aside how long they took to do it, the actual conversation itself, I thought it was fine. It got. Again, how long it took is another issue, but I think it explained its point well enough. And considering some of the more, considering the misuse of AI lately, as like I said before, if you're using voice AI to give somebody back their voice who lost theirs, like Val Kilmer, for example, I'm okay with that.
Sure.
And if you're using it to mod in a voice track, again, as long as you're doing that as per just a mod, you're technically not really hurting anyone.
But if you're using it to say, I don't know, make someone say something that they would never say in real life.
Although a reminder that some VAs have come out saying they would rather people not use them at all.
Like Roger Craig's me.
And Mike Pollock.
Wait, no.
They didn't consent.
I think that was Mike Pollock that said that. I haven't heard Roger
say a couple of months ago, Jova. Someone recreated the insult scene from GTA 5 using Roger Craig's me as an AI, and if you forgot, that includes a racial slur.
I thought that was Ryan that they used that with.
Well, it was a Sonic voice act.
You see, this is why I love that one line from AI Kernel. Too much power for an immature species.
Honestly, yeah.
That line sums up this entire issue so... I love that fucking line. That line is so perfect. It perfectly sums this thing up. Too much power for an immature species. Yep, that sums it up perfectly.
To sum my point up real quickly, medicinal use for AI and medical use... I'm okay. I'm okay with that. We'll probably get to the point at some point in the future where people who are in, say, the unfortunate position, like the likes of Stephen Hawking, that will probably rely on that kind of tech the most. I don't want to use it for legitimate, well-meaning purposes. Everything else, like the examples we mentioned earlier, and not to mention just using it to be a twat.
Calling it now, eventually the Metal Gear Solid fan base is going to use AI technology to mod in David Hayter's voice on Metal Gear Solid 5.
My misgivings on how the whole thing came about, honestly, I wouldn't want that.
Me neither.
No. Whether or not you want it, I'm just calling that's eventually going to happen.
They made the game as it is, and... yeah, I don't like how it happened, but it happened.
Hell, David Hayter himself wouldn't approve of it. So
Again, like I said, I'm just calling that that's going to happen. I know that's
Whether
probably
we like it or
not the best thing to happen, essentially. But yeah, like Tia said,
Because people can't behave.
I've already said the line, so I'll move on.
Yeah.
Go on, Dibs.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shuri made a Metal Gear abridged version of the line. Anything else?
I don't think so. Oh, you already mentioned the music. I think you've covered everything at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, to sum it up, MGS2, solid game overall, but I think it got a bit long-winded at points. The romance dialogue was atrocious, and especially considering that was all done with the Rose AI, was freaking pointless.
Like I said,
they wasted my freaking time.
Like I said, even if we know if that was the Rose AI, like, that's the problem with Rose. Either she was just lying through her teeth to that point, or you pretty much know nothing about Rose, to which point, yeah, the whole romancing was not really all that worth there.
How about this, Twips? What if I recreate David Cage's voice with an AI and use that to make him sound like a moron, the moron that he is?
You don't really need to do that. He doesn't.
He just has to speak. Like,
True.
you don't need to do that.
But I can make it even bigger and funnier. Sure, that's the thing. Like, there's so much.
Why would you do that?
Because it amuses me. Okay.
Too much power, yada 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 yada.
Okay, Pedro, let him trip over his own feet. You don't need to fall over with him.
It would be funnier to actually have his AI version actually somehow be more of a polite gentleman than the real deal.
Yeah, man, that's it from me.
All right.
Go on.
Next?
Go on, Jova.
Okay. Metal Gear Solid 2. Like Dwib says, is a solid game at its core. And it does have a lot of interesting things to say as well. That being said, I do feel like this is one of the weaker narratives of the main Metal Gear series. I'm not counting 5 for obvious reasons, because 5's story got neutered to high heaven, But yeah, no, I do think Metal Gear Solid 2 has overall one of the weaker stories. Now keep in mind, that is not saying that it is overall bad, because, look, it's Metal Gear. They have some above usual degree pedigree
Even one of the weaker Metal Gear stories is still above the usual stuff we get.
It's like a face.
What some Tommy Johnny told about from this review, and I have to go for that. Apparently, the first Acid might have the weakest story of all.
Well, to be fair,
the Acid game.
To be fair, Jova was talking about the mainline games, though.
Sure.
Yeah, Jova was talking about the mainline games.
I was mainly talking about those, but yeah, no. Like Pedro said, it's like the Ace Attorney series. Like, technically, by gameplay standards, these are series that have above average storytelling for their games. So it's kind of a bit of a Pixar effect where, yeah, it feels noticeably weaker, but I could probably still enjoy it. Now, let me start off with the music before I get into the nitty-gritty here. The music is pretty much all great, fantastic, just like the first game. It's good and atmospheric when it needs to be, high-octane and exhilarating when the fights come about, and it has a good sense of variety. Same overall with the gameplay, I would say. If there are two things that are majorly consistent in being great improvements over Metal Gear Solid 1 on, it is, maybe not outright an improvement, but it is the music and gameplay that feel like upgrades from Metal Gear Solid 1 that are consistently good. Because the gameplay, and yes, I'm counting the codec calls you can get as sort of part of the gameplay, more so in how you can get them and the different reactions that they implemented. No, they give you a ton of stuff to do in this game. Great stuff, honestly. So, that leads me to where I am a bit divided in, and that is the overall writing of this game. Again, my rule of thumb is this. Kojima, when he is at a concentrated amount of his Kojima-ism particles, as I have scientifically codified them as, he is pretty good. Fine. Probably at his best, too. No, when you inject too much Kojima particles into the bloodstream, that is when you pretty much become a walking, talking soliloquy.
Jova, I asked for your final thoughts, not your science project on Kojima's on Kojima body science.
What can I say, Pedro? He's a fascinating, very fascinating specimen. But nah, okay, seriously speaking though, Metal Gear Solid 2, I think, does kind of suffer the issue that stuff like, Metal Gear Solid 4, or more infamously, that game he made after he left Konami, Death Stranding. Yeah. They're good games, mind you, but you do get the sense that Kojima pretty much was unrestrained there to the point where somebody couldn't tell him, maybe this might be a bad idea, Mr. Kojima-san. Let me put it like this with the overall narrative. When it really gets deep thinking and has a lot to say on the stance of things going about here, it is very interesting. It has some very good points. I think where the links are, though, is kind of the overall story connecting a lot of those points here. Let me elaborate. One of the major points here is, of course, the romance between Raiden and Rose. I have gone on long degree as to why I do not like Rose. Now, she can have good lines, but a lot of the time she can be annoying and very much pry into Raiden's business beyond the points of their relationship. And that's before you even realize the whole thing was a sham, but it turns out she really did fall in love with him supposedly, except that may not have even really been true because that may have been the AI Rose, because the real Rose was being held captive by the Patriots at some point, who apparently let her go, except now we're left to wonder how that is, because it turns out the Patriots were already dead, and yeah, that's a good segue for another issue I do have with the game here. Like Shuri did mention, the plot twists eventually just come at you like they're being fired out of a machine gun. And it does get to the point where I have to wonder, did Kojima really think this all out through and through? Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I love the plot twist that it turns out that the whole thing against Dead Cell was kind of a glorified training exercise, with Ocelot being the goddamn overseer of it all. But man, we get plot twist upon plot twist to the point where not only does it become a bit hard to fall for some, not only do you have to question what is real or not, but holy cow, it can just be exhaustive, especially with, again, how much story over gameplay you get here. I do feel like they could have benefited from trying to mix the two together better. But that being said, overall throughout the game are also some bits of a story here, which, okay, let's talk about the big elephant in the room here. Raiden kind of replacing Snake as the main player character. I do get the point that they did it, to show the bouts of the digital media and deception here. I still do think people are in the right, though, for kind of being annoyed, especially if they did prefer playing as Snake here. Let me put it like this. The way I see it with Raiden is he kind of has Silver the Hedgehog syndrome, as I like to call it, wherein his debut was definitely not as great as he gets in later games, essentially. Now, this is not to say he had it as bad as the likes of, say, Silver the Hedgehog, but I won't lie, the first time I ever played this game, I kind of was wondering, okay, when do I get to play as Snake again? It's not that I
you
hate
and everybody.
Raiden, it's just that, well, honestly, I was much more interested in Snake Steel than I was with Raiden's here, which is kind of a similar issue I had with Apollo and Apollo Justice, essentially. The stuff going on with Phoenix was way more interesting than what was going on with Apollo. Now, with Raiden here, he is supposed to be the avatar for the player character. You know, right down to, it's essentially like he's playing a video game here and there. I do feel like that kind of hits a snag when suddenly we get the big plot twist of his backstory of him being a more or less flipping child soldier compared to Jack the Flipping Ripper. And yeah, the thing is, he sort of remembered that, in a sense. It's complicated, which again, I do wonder if they were just trying to throw all the stuff in because, again, as far as everyone knew, well, everyone on the production side knew anyway, this was apparently going to be the end of the Metal Gear series, or at the very least the Solid Snake saga, which I'll get to later on that regard, but yeah.
Well, think about this. Like, Takumi said that Phoenix in the original trilogy was also meant to be kind of an avatar for the player, and he still gave him a tragic backstory in the first Ace Attorney.
Well, okay. To be fair, Phoenix's backstory is a lot easier to kind of relate to, like, being wrongfully accused in front of your classroom and whatnot. Whereas with Raiden, I think I recall in my childhood that I wasn't the child equivalent to a serial killer on the battlefield.
I guess, but I don't think a backstory necessarily has to be relatable to you specifically. I mean,
oh, it doesn't have to. It's just that I feel like it's kind of a big. I do feel like it throws a wrench into what they had planned here. Not to the point where I dislike Raiden. I just felt it was a weird move to do. But regardless, though, like I said, okay, back to a positive thing with the writing, though, I do enjoy the codec calls, for the most part. There are some that kind of go on a bit long here and there to the point where you really just want to pick up the controller, and some that are kind of funny to think, wait, no, are they seriously just letting him do this even though we were literally just about to get attacked? That's all funny stuff here and there. I think that's about most of it. Let's see. I already talked about...
What about the twist, Jova? What's your stance, towards AI is wanting to rule over us?
As well as the power, as well as the power of the internet being too much for an immature species.
Kojima knew what he was talking about. That is for certain. How he portrayed it is... Okay, I have two sort of minor issues with how he did it. First of all, I do feel like it does rant on a bit with the AIs talking down to us, essentially. And I will admit, it does kind of remind me of Undertale of all things, which is also a popularly meta game.
It's interesting because
finger at players possibly getting desensitized to violence and whatnot through video games and whatnot.
It's interesting you say that because Toby Fox has cited Kojima as one of his big inspirations.
That does not surprise me at all.
Heckin' clear, to be honest.
Also, a lot of people, have cited him as an inspiration, including the person behind Hunt Down the Freeman,
Huh. Yeah. Well, Hunt Down the Freeman did try to be meta. The keyword being tried. But, no. I'm not saying it's bad, but it does kind of tick my personal pet peeve of, I do feel like it kind of does go a little far in saying, at least it kind of feels like it's saying, oh, well, shame on you for playing the game, essentially. I do get what they're going for here and there. I'm just personally not really a fan of when it feels like I'm being talked down to for playing the game as I was supposed to. Regardless, though, that's not my biggest issue with this, though. My bigger issue with this is, again, let's look at this from the context of this supposedly supposed to being the end of the Metal Gear series. That bit feels like the bad guys essentially talk down to us big time and get away with it. Because keep in mind, as far as we knew, the Patriots were just out of our reach in the end. Because this is what Kojima planned to end thing on. That really bugs me. For as many problems as I have with Kingdom Hearts 3D's plot and how much of a god villain suit they made Xehanort, at least it was made with the intent that we were eventually going to take Xehanort down. This game was not made with the intent that we were initially going to take the Patriots down, which, yeah, does get on my nerves a bit, because, oh dear lord, as good as the speech is, I did get to a point where it felt like, Wow, I really do hope I get to show them how wrong they are. And I guess that little bit with Snake telling Raiden that, no, you truly are your own person is supposed to be that, but... Look, like I said, I like this game, but I'm not one of the people who said that Metal Gear Solid 4 course corrected hard on it. Now, do I feel Metal Gear Solid 4 could have done some better things for course correcting on it? Yes, but I'm not going to go into those because my Final Fantasy have gone on long enough. Overall, let me just do a resum up here. It's a good game, good plot, has good things to say, but at times your patience will be tested. Certain characters like Rose or Emma will try your patience here and there. And while it is a good story, one thing I do feel that's not as done as well as the first game are a lot of the death scenes. Okay. Let me reiterate. The death scenes actually are done well. It's just that a lot of the character deaths I'm kind of iffy on, because a lot of times characters will kind of just up and die, and I guess that's to show the meaning of war, but sometimes it feels like more just a waste than anything, especially when kinda Emma's death scene was a bit narmy, essentially. Don't get me wrong, the aftermath, incredibly sad. Poor Otacon, but I do feel like some of the deaths are a little misplaced in this game, compared to Metal Gear Solid 1, where they all definitely felt like they were placed just right for the right sense of impact for each of their characters. But look, again, at the end of the day, thankfully, Metal Gear Solid 2 was not the end of the road in sight. It was part of what would grow into a much longer journey. A journey that will continue. But yes, I may find it to be one of the weaker Metal Gear Solid games, but let's be honest, saying it's one of the weaker Metal Gear Solid games is not by any means deriding it as bad. If you can get it in a collection or whatnot, play it. Alright, that's it.
Shiroi.
Alright. No, despite its flaws, and it does have a few of them, I still very much enjoyed this. Like, mostly because of Kojima just Kojimaing all over the place. But,
how does one Kojima all over the place?
There's a lot of Kojima's he left his Kojima's splooge all over. It's all over.
I think it's Kojima time, yes.
Go on, Shiroi.
Alright. I'm, like, I love all the meta stuff, and, and I don't have a problem with the plot twists Kojima goes with, but as I was saying to Pedro off commentary and a bit at the end of the last part, my god, man, slow down, please. Like, I need to process all this information, and it's funny that this information overload comes from the characters who were complaining about information overload. So gonna need you to dial it back.
So what you're saying, Shira, is that AI kernel was right. There is too much information. There you go.
Yeah, but they're the ones doing it. So like, get off my back. I do actually have something to say, because I mentioned something. Well, I asked a question to you guys like earlier in this LP for those who are like more experienced with this series, and I didn't have any kind of clarifications at that time, but I actually did see someone elaborate recently on this, and it's about Kojima's handling of female characters.
Okay, go on.
I'm kind of seeing it a little here.
I'm guessing with Rose.
Not just Rose. Jova mentioned needless deaths that just characters just up and die.
Right.
It's pretty much always the women, and a lot of the time it's so the men can go through something.
Like I said, Olga particularly is guilty of this. So.
Oh, right, I forgot about Olga's
This is apparently
death.
what people are talking about, and like, okay, in that sense, I do get it, because
now, granted,
a lot of the deaths aren't necessary. I'm not saying, don't kill any of the women. That would be stupid. This is a war game. You kill whoever you want. But again, it's just like their deaths seem to be to further some kind of character growth for the male cast. And
sure.
And again, like Fortune, just like her death being one of the most underwhelming we've seen. So Yeah.
Fortune has that side effect where, oh, it turns out she didn't really have the secret power. It was all smoke and mirrors. And the minute it goes down, bang, she's dead.
But outside of that, I do like the personality of the female characters while they're alive. Except for Rose. Although I'm not sure if I should even be saying this, because I don't even know how much of that was the real Rose.
It's like I said, Shiroi.
It gets better.
It's like I said, Shuri, either Rose essentially played Raiden's heart like a fiddle, and yeah, she is terrible for that, or you know nothing about Rose.
Yeah, that's the kind of...
Let me ask you this,
I guess
Shiroi.
is one of the problems.
Let me ask you this, Shiroi. If a woman becomes a villain out of some kind of plot reason, whatever, like hypothetically, and the male hero has to kill her because she turned bad, or
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I mean, that's like for a reason. You know, you're kind of a war criminal. Off you pop. But
Sure.
I think the issue Shuri is pointing out, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's how, again, when you get down to it, Emma dying felt more like it was just another reason to see Hal cry and have to go through it rather than it being a strong moment for her. A similar case with Olga dying. Again, correct me if I'm wrong on that regard. Like, is that what you mean, Shuri?
Well, again, it's just like how a lot of them are needless.
All right, and okay,
And
to be
again,
fair,
happen to further the male cast's development.
now
Sure.
to be fair, I also felt that Stillman's death was needless, and he's a male as well. But yeah, no, I do realize in hindsight a lot of those deaths were of women.
Mm-hmm. But really, that's my only issue. So I'm fine with the rest of this. The plot twists just needed to slow down. Music's good as always. Humor's on point, like even outside of the meta stuff. Although
Yeah.
I do feel, and there were some great moments out of it, though I do feel that Raiden is definitely a writer's punching bag.
Shiroi, trust me, man, you have no idea how much you're right, because starting already in MGS3, despite being set in a different time, they decide to take a jab towards Raiden's appearance.
Well, see, the thing is,
Oh.
okay. Here's the thing. In MGS2, when they do it, I will argue it's more playful humor rather than an actual attempt to. It's with MGS3 that I will argue that definitely.
Yeah, the next one.
Okay,
Well,
Kojima has.
even when they mean it with love, writers always have the designated punching bag.
Kojima has gone on record to say he does kind of regret some of the jabs towards Raiden in Metal Gear Solid 2 that have not aged the best. So
Sure.
No, I'm
I
talking
think.
specifically about MGS3 myself.
Oh, I get that. What I was mainly referring to this, and Shuri was referring to this game in that regard.
The thing about MGS.
Free yet, so.
The one in MGS3 was a direct response to the massive criticism Raiden got in 2 back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Go on, Sherry, go on.
I do get why fans would have felt duped in, not being able to play Snake throughout the game, and yeah, ending the franchise like this. Kojima, you're brilliant and all, but that was not smart. Like there was no way you could have left it like that.
Again, let me remind you, Shuri, this was the game where people were wondering, is Kojima a mad genius, or is he just mad?
Yes.
Both. yeah.
So mad genius then. That's.
No, I have very much enjoyed going through all this.
Sure. Well, okay. Do you have a favorite quote of AI Kernel during the meta stuff?
Oh god, there's a lot. But
Okay. No, based on me re-listening to your reactions from the actual bit, is probably the one where he says, "I'm sorry to report, but if you have too many game overs, sorry to be blunt, but you really stink at this game."
Again, my favorite is definitely about the money
Yeah.
he lost from his wife.
Yeah, basically.
the one Pedro mentioned is even funnier now because we now know that this was largely a simulation of sorts, and it's like, well, you set this shit up. Maybe it's your problem that we're dying so much. I don't know.
Well, there you go then. So is that your favorite then?
I guess.
Sure.
Like, there was a lot, so a lot of very, very good ones.
Okay, well, what do you
All
think?
this random stuff that we just saw for the last 40 minutes that's
Mhm.
just there because, and it's funny.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, I think.
All right.
Okay.
Teo.
Honestly, even taking away the hindsight of the stuff that eventually did, sadly, came true, I don't really... I treat this the same way that I treat, as controversial as it might sound these days, a Star Wars prequel movie, in a sense that, yes, severely flawed, I cannot ignore that, but I cannot bring myself to hate it as much as I probably should still. Not in a sense that I need to ignore that, or in a sense that actually makes those bad parts good, but again, also in a sense that I cannot put it there and say that outright I consider it this kind of bad. Especially because a couple of parts I genuinely do enjoy. But let's take aside the hindsight for a second. The gameplay, I don't really have anything to say because it's pretty much just like the first Metal Gear Solid, just put up on steroids, so there's not really anything to complain about on that front. And I argue, pacing issues aside, there is a decent enough, component of gameplay here that, should still justify the price of the game in terms of actually making you play. Again, it's just a matter, as we said, about how it's paced. Now, for example, the potential false advertising by promoting mostly just Snake, even in the demo. People bought Zone of the Enders just to play that goddamn demo, remember that?
God, the power of demos back in the day.
And
That's
I can
part of the
assure
reason.
you, I genuinely like Zone of the Enders as a franchise, but I too will say that the first game is not really a great start.
No.
So people really bought it just for that.
Hey, Shiro, guess what? Here's a fun fact for you, Shiro. The writer and director of the first Son of the Enders was the same guy who wrote and directed Lautrec. Another Shiro fan tale, but just putting it on Shiro's perspective.
I mean, to his credit, Lautrec may have been an upgrade over the first Son of the Enders script.
It depends. Again, they're really
I will say
different
this.
products, Jova, even on a story and character level.
Let me just put it this way, real quick. Story-wise, it's definitely something worth debating. Gameplay-wise, I'll still take Zone of the Enders 1 over Lautrec, personally.
But
I was
anyway.
like I said, mainly script and story.
Sure.
Gameplay-wise, well, okay, they're two different genres.
Yeah. Go on, too.
Anyway, again, there is an undoubtable fact about Konami and Kojima decided to withhold the information, and some argue it's connected to the themes of the game, deception, what is real and what is not, define expectation and everything. On one hand, I understand that, and honestly, personally, I wouldn't be really bothered by it, because it's not like they killed gratuitous. Again, the intro makes it seem like they killed Snake immediately, but thankfully he surfaces up again soon enough for it to say, oh, okay, thank God he's right, and you're just wondering to know, sure, there is the fact that you might want to play as him, but arguably Raiden plays just identically as him, and doesn't really try to be identical as Snake, despite the simulation wanting to make us believe so. There is a starking difference between how this handles character shifting, a character that would play similar to the previous one, and let's say the DMC Devil May Cry reboot. I'm sorry that we keep bringing this up, but just to mention, before the special edition actually corrected the gameplay, Dante felt playing very differently, and our personality level was completely different. Raiden is different on personality compared to Snake, a bit more about dweeb and everything. And I argue, and I guess maybe for the time the game was made, the early 2000, it really wasn't a thing that people would have been used to. But in this day and age, where thanks to the internet, it has been a bit more normalized, taking away from the machismo of hyper testosterone heroes, and it's more of a more recognized people of male gender with a bit more of a,
feminine.
not necessarily fragile ego, because that term is being a buzzword and I don't really like it on that front, but more in a sense of more emotional, more willing to not have as much of the nerves of steel that the testosterone-filled action hero would have. So in this more day and age, there are people that, even if they don't necessarily relate to, are capable of empathize with what Raiden is going through. While back in the day, it would have been more a case of what the game was suggesting. He plays video games, he's such a nerd, look at this dweeb, he's an idiot, am I right? Not like Snake, who gets all the girls anyway. But it might be just a tiny discrepancy on that front, admittedly. Honestly, one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet, if I had to be blunt, Solidus as a villain is kind of disappointing, admittedly. We were kind of built up as a bigger threat than Liquid, but very soon it showcases that he doesn't really have 100% control, and when both Onslaught, then Liquid, and then Snake and also Fortune play their hand, Solidus keep being piled up, and it becomes a victim of the Patriots and Raiden. I get that's also one of the messages of the game, but this is admittedly a bit disappointing for something I've been building up from a previous game.
I do get what you mean. Like, he kind of feels like if Red White was built up as like the final boss of a second Ace Attorney game, but then his performance is just like it was in Turnabout Sisters.
But anyway, yeah, what also has been mentioned, and I also did mention, I didn't mind so much the way Fortune actually died, because I argue, even taking away her gizmo, she still showcases a bit of that bit of actual luck, genuine luck, towards the end when deflecting the Metal Gear Ray missiles. That is a bit of thing that happens after her electromagnetic gizmo has been removed from her. So she does have a moment to go out like a badass. Sadly, I cannot say the same thing as Olga, and I don't understand that, because she spends both the prologue of the game and as the ninja to kick ass. So why don't you have a moment where she fights Solidus, and even if she doesn't necessarily kill him or anything, like puts a serious injury, similar to, again, the Corestone example of if you really want to kill a character like that, like Supergirl in Crisis on Infinite Earths. Make the character go out in a blaze of glory, so it really feels kind of triumphant, even if the level might feel meaningless to the narrative, which is what the game wants to go through.
It's weird, because she even says...
if she's supposed to be a parallel to Grey Fox managed to go out with a bang, fighting the Metal Gear Rex. So I really don't just think they just lived up on a narrative level on that front. Rose, call me crazy, but I don't really have a problem with Rose, if I had to be honest. Yes.
No, okay, my turn. I can actually see what you mean, Teo, because, okay, this may be a bit embarrassing to admit, but me and my wife, we kind of banter. Our bantering in conversations kind of have a lot of corny dialogue the same way as a lot of these conversations, so I personally can kind of relate, but this is just me, of course.
I'm not talking about the banter or whatever. The banter is just a thing, like that really is a personal taste. I'm talking about the not talking to each other and the information, right, and not talking about these insecurities as an ex-child soldier and everything, and Rose not talking about how she's an infiltrator for the government and subsequently also the Patriots, that is the breaking point also for many people. And I have to be honest, however, not really. It's not too much different from a lot of other dysfunctional kind of relationships that are present, and the characters will still react in a rather natural way to the matter, and at the end of the day, they genuinely still want to give it a try with an honest attempt instead of just, pretending that nothing happened. So I do believe there is a purpose on that, in terms of being pointless, like we've described, and false narrative. What they will do with that is another story, but we'll have to get to that point. But let's talk about the twist and
too much power for an immature species.
Actually, believe it or not, that's not my key quote of that speech. My one is instead what they say about the communities. No one is invalidated, but
no one is right. Yeah.
Because honestly, that really sums up today's internet, doesn't it?
Yep.
No matter how righteous you are, the circumstances make it look like it's all for nothing. And I am sorry to say, in a very cynical manner, the AIs do have a point. Look, I'm not here to tell you how you should spend your time on the internet. Ask your parents if you're too small. And by the way, what are you doing here? Just to know.
Don't worry, Ted. There's been plenty of people on the internet who have made stuff like, oh, you know what? Maybe AI kernel had a point.
Well, I don't know, because, that may sound, again, like excessive cynicism and say, oh, humanity is beyond redemption and everything. I'm more to say that, we're just, as also mentioned in this extra part, we're just still that ignorant on many levels, and we do not have that many ways to educate ourselves on a practical level. Even if we do, we're still faulty as human beings. Something will still slip out one way or another. And as mentioned by the others, things that are mentioned in the speech, we're still present in a way, but I also do agree that the internet amplified them and put a new context on the matter of what is real and what is not. And with the rising of actual genuine AIs, both in terms of art, painting arts, which, although thankfully, thanks to the number of fingers, we're still safe for the time being, but who knows where they're going to fix that. And more recently, in terms of AI voice acting, voices, which those are becoming scarily accurate instead, we're basically on the precipice of a new age of misinformation. And at that point, again, what's going to be what's going to be real and what not? More junk data processing, which will collectively, create confusion and chaos, and will have the vast majority of people not understand what's going on. And before anyone asks, because there's a countless memes about it, it's not even a case of, oh, everyone else around me is a sheeple, but I know the truth and everything. No. There are countless, subjects of where I am on the same level as many other people, and vice versa. I'm just saying that I do believe that we need to organize better ourselves, and I do believe there should be some form of understanding and regulation of how the processes are filtered. The problem on that is that the AIs who supposedly the AIs who supposedly managed to decide to put themselves above humanity or claim to be, they're still a human product. And as showcased also in this very game, they are capable of being faulty and capable of being hijacked by humans. Therefore, they do not constitute an authority to tell us what to do and what not, because they're just as faulty as us in a way. Sure, they might be more reactive and might have, not supposedly bias, but because of their faultiness, they do not really need that. If I had to be sad enough, and on that front, we need a miracle. An alien species that will show up, tell us how shitty we are, and will be capable of telling us what is right and what not. But that's just not even utopic, because that would imply it's a positive manner. I think we're just that fucked up as a species that no matter where we look at, we're screwed. So, yeah. Yes, Jova?
My stance has never really been that. Again, my stance has always been this. Optimism, but not to the point where we be blind to things and pretend like everything is perfect.
Well, again, Jova, the recurring theme also that is showcased in this game, unfortunately, no matter it's not a point of also do you think your ideas are positive or negative or anything. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. It just doesn't matter, because they might be lost in the cesspool of gigantic information. Maybe some will be true and one not. Hell, I'm sad to bring this up because it's a real case, and by the time recording this, it's in a delicate position. But even one person involved in this very game, Quinton Flynn, was accused of sexual misconduct. And as far as we know, the last information we know, because I tried to check, allegedly the court case has been essentially being put on hold because supposedly the judge ruled out that the accuser was, using too much information and harassing Quinton using not proven information. But at the same time, a lot of people are still believing that's not really a truthful claim, and he's still guilty of what's been accused. So we're in a state, as mentioned, where nobody's invalidated, but nobody is right at the same time. And a lot of people are left between this hammer and the anvil, and are like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? You know, because in a lot of cases, a lot of people will be left there with freedom and don't know what to do with it. It's simple as that. It's also part of that speech that Cheetah said to Faye in Xenogears. A lot of people, for as sad as a state it is, are feeling the need to be told what to do. And it's sad, because we should still have the right of exercise our freedom, no matter what. And this leads to a lot of abuse from government and organizations and such.
Mm-hmm.
We just need, I do believe, the best I can suggest, because I'm not even an anthropologist on that matter, we should still enhance education. That's just as simple as that. Perfect and boost the educational system. Let people learn, and so they can decide for themselves what to do with their lives. But until that point, we're just a bunch of ignorant kids trying to play and pretend, and this game reflects that. I'm sorry.
Again, I think one thing you're forgetting, though, is that the end of the game actually does come into counter how, no, that is not the case.
Well, like
for
I said, I do
everyone,
believe it plays on the fact that
Collective.
those who proposed that were AIs as in faulty. Snake was basically still said to ride into, the free. And again, we have to reiterate that the fictional world of Metal Gear is still relatively different than the one of ours, even by the time it was made, and even if some things got right on the long, in terms of how people, states, and organizations are made. So yeah, thanks for coming to my TED Talk, by the way.
I'm not sober enough for some of this, not gonna lie.
Yeah, that's...
No, go, keep going to... keep going to. You're justifying something I'm going to say in my final thoughts just by doing this, so go on.
Look, again, I'm not even the cleanest person to say any of this, because I am guilty of being a terrible, like I mentioned in our practical guide video, I've been a terrible person, both on the internet and in real life for many years. I'm just trying to make up for it the best way I can. But, I don't know, I think this game, touch it. You feel Kojima's touch in a way that you probably, wouldn't want to.
Teo, where did Kojima touch you?
I don't want to. But again, if I want to find any kind of, end to this rope, to whatever this train has actually led, I don't think the game is bad. I do believe it has flaws. But I don't think it's even the worst of the series. And I know they say, oh, this should be Metal Gear Survive. I
think you were mentioning probably 5 in that regard.
Not really. Again, as far as I checked, there's a thing, Joe. In general, the bar has been raised that high, but I guess, from what I've seen, the first Acid might be the worst of the entire franchise.
I was talking story-wise and main series in that regard, but...
Oh, no, okay. It's a bit hard for me to decide, to be honest.
I'm going to take a wild guess, and I'm guessing your pick would be 4, knowing you like I do.
Really, that's still props up.
Okay. In that case...
I guess Portable Ops, but that's really just saying because I had to pick something.
I mean, okay, in that case, I was about to say, okay, if it's not 4, then I was having a trouble guessing what we would be.
I don't think 5 story is bad, just unfinished.
Oh, sure, same. I think the same as well.
Do we count Portable Ops as a main game?
Yeah, technically it is.
Canonize it.
Technically it is, yes.
But again, I've also ranted long enough, and I also need to catch some sleep because the alcohol actually allows that to happen. Very good.
Oh, okay.
Like I told you, Jova, cheap canned beer is the perfect tool for a political debate. It's literally the thing, Jova. I promise I will not talk about politics 3 beers later.
And this is one of the reasons why I stay sober.
Your loss. Anyway, again, to put it bad, I don't think the game is bad. I actually enjoy the story for the most part. It could have been better. It could have been more honest. Yes. But I do believe it was fine as a Metal Gear Solid game for when it came out. But just to be more honest, and it only gained more resonance as the time went on. So, play it if you want to. Came through a story summary if you want, or a cutscene compilation on YouTube. Good Lord knows how many those are. Or even a review of it. There was a guy that me and Pedro watched that had very few subscribers, but did a very decent Metal Gear retrospective. But just give it a try, and again, as also emphasized by Snake, and to go against all the bad stuff that I might have said, formulate your own opinion. That's the best advice I can give. Pedro.
Obviously. Real quick before I get to my final thoughts, because I actually forgot to ask a couple of things to you, Shiro, during your final thoughts, actually, and Teo, some of the stuff that Teo said reminded me of. Just one more thing about the whole thing. Okay, what if a woman wants to nobly sacrifice herself for a great cause, and she asks a man to kill her?
I think you're going for very specific scenarios instead of what's actually presented to us.
No. I'm not talking about the stuff in this game.
I'm talking about what's presented here and the way Kojima handles it.
Oh, sure, I get that, Shiroi, but who's to say that the scenarios I'm posing are not going to happen in the future, though?
We'll have to see the writing surrounding it.
Sure. Well, I was just curious. Anyway.
I think it is probably best we wait till we get to those points.
In general, Pedro, one thing you try to understand, when these things are mentioned, is because there has been a genuine disparity in the way, men or women are treated in works of fiction, even when it comes to all themes, not just, the depths in terms of, all sorts of things. Remember, things like Wonder Woman were like the exception, even those were kind of tainted at the same time. So it's more of a thing that has been going on, and only in the most recent decades there has been a sign of change. Sometimes with the bumps on the road. But
sure. That being said,
this is not to say that there were never examples that treated women great, even back as early as the 50s, 30s, even 40s. But it is understandable that back then they were not the majority.
Okay, that's right. Tay also reminded me, actually, since he was the one who's been asking everybody the father. Sure, I don't think you mentioned something about what do you think about the commentary on the internet stuff.
Oh, I thought I did.
I think she did.
Oh, did she? Oh, okay. Never mind. I must have.
To elaborate, I guess, the internet really did just give, more power to what people were already doing.
Oh yeah. Too much.
I do think.
It really.
I think pretty much everything, it was for the good, but also for the bad. It all comes down to how you use it.
Sure.
On the one hand, it has been used for bad stuff here. Sometimes harassing people, misusing information. On the other hand, it has been used for good. Stuff like Kickstarter campaigns, supporting people in need and whatnot. I do feel like it is one of the ultimate gray morality bouts here and there. And like I said, though,
the AI being flawed, as you guys mentioned, in the way of it was made by humans. So
let me put it like this: I think I'd be more okay with the AI constantly talking down to us if we at least got to punch him in the face eventually. Jesus!
How do you punch an AI?
Oh, look, Mega Man Star Wars.
It's not physical.
Technology is quite something, Pedro.
I guess.
Future is now.
We can do it, everybody. We have the technology. But unfortunately, Shiroi Kojima doesn't want to spend a lot of money. So we can't punch the AI. Anyway. Okay. Actually, yeah. Okay, so here's my basic gist of it regarding this. Okay. Starting with the negative stuff. Yeah, like people have been saying, some of the devs are not handled the best. I'm not going to repeat it, whatever people have already said. Yeah, some devs could have been handled better. So, and like I said, even though I personally don't mind the roast thing, I also understand that this is not something that's going to apply to a lot of people. So So obviously that's just something that's unavoidable. So whatever, fine. But that it doesn't change the fact that this is because it's not a lot of people are going to sorry, let me rephrase that. Not relate to this specifically. I understand why. That's fine. Yeah. Yes. Aside from that, I personally don't mind the pacing of the twists themselves, but I personally, I think it was still fine. Maybe it could have been handled a bit smoother, sure, but I personally don't mind the speed of it all. I thought it was fine enough for me. What else in terms of negatives?
Rose.
I've already mentioned Rose. Like I said, again, to reiterate, I understand why people don't like Rose. Rose's dialogue and everything, but I understand. Oh yeah, if you want to talk to me specifically about the whole is she real or is she not thing, I'm gonna have to side with Teo on this one. For me, it's one of those things where it's not so much about whether or not you've been talking to Rose all along. It's more so about that these two are now gonna have a fresh start. That's kind of how I take it, but at the same time, I also understand that it could have been handled better, and definitely. And definitely understand. Like I said, I myself was never particularly all that keen on it to begin with, anyway. So whatever.
And also, like Tia said, it's going to get fun in future games.
Mm-hmm.
But more on that later.
Yes. Trying to think of any more negatives. God. Okay, I guess I can't really think of anything else that I have in terms of negatives. So I think I've addressed them all. Like I said, I'm not going to go too much in depth in some of them because most of you have already done so. So I don't want to be repetitive.
Anything else you have?
No. I still want to bring up stuff. Okay. Okay. So here's the basic gist of it. First off, let's get the most obvious stuff out of the way. Visuals. Top-notch for their time, and they still hold up well together. Yoshi Shinkawa is a brilliant art director. There's a reason why Kojima has him as his art director to this day in his games, because the man knows his stuff. And the fact that this game aged remarkably well for a launch game PS2 game, definitely love it. The music is fantastic, of course. I mean, Metal Gear, so whatever. Gameplay. Gameplay is basically the ultimate refinement of the Metal Gear, of the formula that was started in the original Metal Gear. Starting after this, we're going to start tinkering with it and start throwing in more wide exploration. Basically, Shiro and Metal Gear Solid 3 will start something that would become eventually what MGS5's gameplay is.
Fun stuff.
So fun stuff indeed. But really good. That being said, and like I said, I really think the story. Again, that being said, aside from all the stuff I've mentioned, I actually really appreciate everything that the game does in terms of its themes, because everything resonates so highly, especially years later, and it's one of those things where, despite its problems, I can't help but still really marvel at the excellence on display, because look at the debate that Teo, look at all the TED talk that Teo just gave, as well as the various discussions we've had in the previous part before this. Like, so rarely do game stories demand so much thought and consideration from the player, and that's something that
then anyway,
I will argue even to this day. Honestly, don't get me wrong.
Nowadays, we're getting a lot more game stories that actually do elicit discussion on that level.
Oh no, we do. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think they're as frequent as they should be.
I mean, I feel like if you look hard enough, you'll definitely find quite a lot of game stories that do elicit a lot of discussion here and there. There's also a bout of, standards changing to the point where nowadays people are even able to draw up essays on older game stories that were not as noticed back then as well. I feel like it all comes with a bit of nuance in that regard. Again, not to take away from this game anyway. Like, well, this game was definitely revolutionary for its time in the discussions it would bring up.
And that's one of the major thing. And again, I personally don't mind the manipulation tactics because honestly, I really love a good gotcha moment, even when I'm the one who's being caught in said gotcha moment. To be honest with you, I like that. I like being surprised in this way. I personally don't mind it, as long as it's for a good purpose.
I also like that too.
Provided it's done well, because, well, you know, in recent bout there was...
That's like with everything, Jova. Oh, actually, you just reminded me of something, Jova, actually. Shiroi, while we were doing that game's playthrough a couple years back, me, Jova, and Duez briefly touched upon this. But you, of course, couldn't chime in because you had yet to experience this game for yourself. But now you have, so now I might as well ask you this. Remember the marketing campaign of Last of Us Part 2, where they took Jesse out of said scenes and put Joel in this place to make us think that Joel was going to be traveling with Ellie again?
Also some special dialogue just for that as well, too.
Yeah, and according to Neil Druckmann, that move was inspired by Metal Gear Solid 2's marketing campaign. So, me, Jove, and Dwebs already mentioned in that playthrough what we thought of Neil's bullshit regarding that. So, now that you've experienced both games, what's your opinion on that?
Is this for Last of Us or Last of Us?
Last of Us Part 2.
Last of Us Part 2.
Remember, Shiro, we even saw in Part 0, those trailers that have Joel, that put as Joel being alive after the first 2 hours. And the reason they lied in that marketing, according to Neil Druckmann, was that apparently he took inspiration from Metal Gear Solid 2's playthrough. Marketing campaign.
When you consider what both stories do, be quiet, Neil, please.
Yeah.
Sorry, I really don't like. Ever since Last of Us Part 2, I really don't like Neil.
Nobody does.
So
nobody with a soul.
I don't know.
Anyway.
I don't know about that, my man.
If I recall correctly, my stance was essentially I can get how it would have been inspired by it. That doesn't change it from being bullcrap, though, because...
Oh, sure.
Wow, if you were inspired by it, you completely missed the point about why people are more okay with that nowadays.
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm loving so far the Last of Us HBO show. So far, it's a really great adaptation. But that is still a case, trust me. Like,
who knows? Maybe that HBO show will be able to make something good out of Last of Us Part 2 if the rumors of Season 2 being based off of it.
Yeah. No, okay. I can speak for their adaptation of Season 2, but I can tell you, Shirei, I don't know, that so far... Okay, obviously, yes, we still have to wait until Season 1 concludes, but here's my take on it so far, Shirei. So far, I will consider this TV show the best way to experience the story of the first game, because it does such a great job expanding upon so many things and giving out so much great world building and guess what, Shirei? You said you really like the virus part and stuff like that. Guess what? We get a lot more fleshing out of the virus itself and its origins and stuff like that in the show.
Well, like my main interest with it was the real life origins, because it's based on something that actually exists.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's where my interest came through.
Sure, sorry.
They chose to take influence from something that was real instead of, the usual zombie apocalypse thing.
That being said, trust me, it actually is worth watching. I assure you. Like, and there's a lot of great fan service for people who have played the games. So
there's one complaint about it, which I won't go into now because I do want to see it for myself before I say anything on it.
I know what you're talking about. I'll talk about it after this.
Well,
it's not the gay thing, if that's what you're wondering.
Oh.
No.
Well, I haven't heard anything else.
It's something else. But no, aside from that, I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Sure.
So I think... I don't have HBO, though, so...
Sure. You don't need to. There are other ways. But whatever, that's the point.
Yes, of course.
The point is fuck.
Commentary was watch the Last of Us HBO series.
No. It's a genuinely good show. I assure you. Like, as someone who is a huge fan of the first game, I can tell you that they did a great job. First of all, Bella Ramsey's great. I'm so happy Bella Ramsey managed to overcome her mental issues and get back into acting because I love her. And she's such a great Ellie, but whatever. I'm rambling.
I do like how they do that adaptation thing where they take one thing that wait, it's supposed to go this way in the game, but they change it up essentially so that you get to see, so this is what it would have been like if that happened here and there. Yeah. I won't emphasize on that too much because, again, this is supposed to be a Metal Gear Solid.
Sorry for the tangent, everybody. But the point is, fuck off, Neil, like Shuri said. The point is, okay, getting back to this. Yeah, honestly, to me, Metal Gear's, for as flawed as it is, if you ask me, the positive aspects fly so much higher and overshadow the negative aspects for me. Because... like to me, it's an excellent piece of media that really is incredibly relevant and incredibly on point with its commentary. Like, so rarely do games have such on point commentary as this one, and yeah, it may not be the best Metal Gear game, but I will argue it's one of the most important socially, because of what it has to say, and that has to be worth something. So yeah, that being said, everybody, now that we've gone through what is usually known as the divisive sequel, basically, Shiroi, we're going to take a break from divisiveness, because next up we're going to play the Metal Gear game that everybody loves, the fan favorite. Basically, Shiroi, Metal Gear Solid 3, a Snake Eater, is not just a Hideo Kojima game. It's a Hideo Kojima masterpiece. And I think Snake Eater is regarded by many people, including myself, as the best game in the series, and for good reasons. It's the game that is much more focused, and manages to have, thanks to its simpler focus, it manages to nail all of its ideas pretty much perfectly. And it does all that without sacrificing any of the cleverness that we saw in previous games. So tune in next time for Jova. Can you do the Snake Eater part of the song?
Oh, we did forget to mention one thing.
Go
before
on.
Heading off in our final thoughts. Did you know this is a 2001 game?
Oh yeah. Did I mention that this is a 2001 game? No. Okay. For the record, everybody, for those who are not aware, when newcomers are streaming this game nowadays blind, a lot of people in the audience, whenever they get to that codec call, they like to spam the chat with, by the way, this is a 2001 game. Because they see the people like mouth agape because holy crap, and then everybody in the chat is like, oh, by the way, insert streamer's name here. Did you know that I will remind you that this game came out in 2001? yeah. Okay, Jova, question.
2001, a Kojima's Odyssey.
Question, Jova, do you think you can do a good Snake Eater?
You mean Snake Eater?
Yeah, that's the next one, everybody. Tune in for that.
Cool.